Welcome. I'm Hernan Murdoch. In this episode, we're going to take a look at some of the qualitative aspects of audit programs. Welcome. So, we are taking a look at audit programs, and we have spent some time taking a look at some of the standards related elements related to it, but we probably want to take a look at some of the qualitative aspects about it as well. So, to help us with that, Kathleen Crawford, who is our expert on all things internal auditing, is going to help us look at some of those qualitative elements that we should also keep in mind. Welcome, Kathleen.
Hi, Hernan.
So, yes, we have standards, quite an abundance of those, and we need to know what they say, but we want to emphasize in our program what it means. So, as we look at some of the qualitative elements related to that, we would like to get some insights from you about what are some of the considerations about the audit programs, the work programs, as we plan for this perfect audit. What are some of the things we need to keep in mind? Can you help us out?
Sure. I don't know if I can make it perfect, but I'll hopefully make it a little better.
You'll get us very close, I'm sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at the first graphic. I'm going to be talking about two different concepts. The first one, well, more than two, but the first one is the audit program is a guide. The guide is in that the program tells the auditor what to do, when to do it, even how to do it in some cases. So
Hmm.
it's important for us to not get too locked in to a particular way of doing things. In fact, our audit programs might vary because of the nature of the audit. There could be some variety due to location. There could be some variety due to the objectives, and certainly with regard to the client. So, what I like to tell people to do as you think about, or to think about as you think about the audit program as a guide, imagine what can we do in order to be more efficient with our clients' time. So if you're
Hmm.
on location in a particular place, a particular department, let's be mindful of asking people to spend time with us. They have their own jobs to do. So can we prioritize and concentrate the work program activities that need to be done in that particular location or at that particular point of time? There may be some
Yeah.
efficiencies to be gained here. There is a logical order in which the audit program is written, but we also should step back from that and determine whether or not might be some things that are on a critical path and maybe
Hmm.
some things that are not.
So some of the things that we probably think relate to sequencing
Mm-hmm.
and in what order. So identifying the elements, prioritizing those elements, and then also think about the sequencing of those elements. That will help us do a better job at it and be more respectful as we interact with our audit clients. As relates to the work program itself, they're not all the same. They're going to vary. What are some of the qualitative elements that will help us determine how these needs to be prepared and conducted?
Sure. Well, the other thing for us to think about is that the programs themselves may change. Programs are written in a particular way because we anticipate that issues are going to show up in a particular way in the organization when we move into field work. So we want to prepare a program that relates or that results rather from the preliminary survey information that we have. We want to have a good sense of a program that is directed toward the specific risks that the area might have, but also recognize that it's possible that things will change and priorities will shift. So if we're creating something for the first time, this is a new audit. It becomes a little bit challenging to strike that balance. So be kind to yourself and be mindful that it gets better with practice. There are many audit programs, however, especially in the areas of compliance and financial matters, that are what we call pro forma audit programs.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
areas that are fairly highly regulated or supported by really strong processes that aren't going to change an awful lot over time. We may have
Mhm.
programs that don't change a lot. They're called pro forma audit programs.
And some of those that come to mind, well, you work in financial services
Mhm.
for many years, so branch audits
Mhm.
come to mind as lending themselves to that type of work program. I think also about sales offices, franchise locations, like car rental outlets, and
Mhm.
so on. All of those are, in many cases, going to follow a similar pattern. And you mentioned compliance as definitely one of the type of reviews where these pro forma reviews will be conducted. But a lot of operational reviews also may fall into that category because you may look at some of the same attributes across different locations.
For
So
sure.
definitely an important thing there. Now, the work programs will also vary based on the location, right? I can think, for example, some of the reviews I did where you're doing a review, let's say purchasing,
Mhm.
and you do a review in the United States, and the review follows certain general standards. Some of the things, the procedures will be somewhat similar, but you go to Canada, or you go to Brazil, or you go to other countries, and what you find is that you need to change things around quite a bit.
Mhm.
The purchasing may happen in multiple currencies, the terms may vary quite a bit, the providers will vary quite a bit. So a purchasing review is not the same
Right.
every time, everywhere. So location will be one of the variables, right?
I would say so. I think in
Yeah.
general, auditors need to be alert to, despite what I said about pro forma,
Mhm.
there's not a one size fits all approach
Right.
to anything.
Exactly.
Our focus might be different, assignment over assignment. So even though there may be aspects that we keep intact, it may well be that we're going to be looking at things a little differently in one location or another, or perhaps because of time. We may need to truncate an audit because time has become an issue, and there are other risks and projects to get to. So
Yes.
there, we should expect a certain amount of variability, and not, especially for the less experienced auditor, not to be disrupted by disruption. There will be things that change, and we need
Yes.
to be adaptable.
Very good. So as we think of audit programs as a guide, telling us where we need to go and so on, but I will imagine it also, let's call it constrains you a little bit
Mhm.
so that you stay within your scope. So is that another qualitative aspect of work programs we need to keep in mind?
Yes, and you can actually argue that that somewhat follows what we were just saying about being adaptable. So
Hmm.
our own expectations might be that we should look at a process from end to end, but if the program's not written that way, we're not going to just go off willy-nilly. So the program as written is also a fence. It's a guide to tell us where to go and what to do and what kind of information to get and how to analyze it, but it's also a fence. If there is if something's not in the audit program, there's probably a reason for that. But as a newer practitioner, don't be afraid to ask. There,
Hmm.
you want to know you want to have an understanding, a grounding in the rationale for why you're doing certain things and not doing certain other things. So we want to make sure that if you propose an addition to the audit program, that it makes sense. And we
Hmm.
also have to balance that against time and other resources. So the other thing to reflect on is something that we talk about in the standards. Once a program is approved, any changes must be approved before performing those new steps. So
Hmm.
a
Yes.
program that we've received has been approved and we can take action on it, but we can't go off on the left tangent or the right tangent without making sure that it is warranted, that we have the necessary resources for it, and that it is that action is approved before we do it. One
Hmm.
thing I like to say or have said to people who've reported to me is that, there might be a line of inquiry that's very, very interesting to us, but that doesn't mean that it's a reason to veer from the path that has been laid out already. Let's just check in with each other and make sure that it's appropriate for us to carry on in a different direction.
Right. And some of the things that we have learned over the last few years as we bring into our profession new practitioners and we look at the new generation that in many cases is more tech savvy and aware about so many different things, is to bring them into this discussion as well. Because one of the things that we have also found is that the experienced auditors may develop a work program based on their knowledge and expertise and so on. And then you have someone who may be a much junior auditor looks at it and asks some questions, and you may find yourself wondering, well, oh, wow, we didn't think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to the drawing board and make those adjustments. So for new auditors, I hope that you have the opportunity to, and I tell this to managers all the time, ask your staff auditors also to provide input. Those who may not have been trained auditors to also provide input. This is a thinking game. So from that perspective, what are different ways that we can go about doing this? Are there scenarios that we have not anticipated that you may think of from a risk perspective that can enrich the work program? So the way we've done it in the past doesn't mean that's the way we're going to do it in the future. So let's think about new opportunities for improvement and seeing if those can incorporate into the program.
A classic example of that, Hernan, is the evolution from statistical sampling to data analytics.
Yes, exactly.
That is a classical example of exactly what you said.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and we're seeing a lot of activity there as well. So as we look at the work programs and we think about putting all of these elements together, so what are some of the key criteria elements that we should keep in mind to make sure that what we put together as a work program is going to meet these qualitative elements that we have been talking about?
Well, I have a graphic for that sums it all up. First, we want to make sure that objectives are clearly stated so we know what we're aiming for, why we're doing this particular audit and carrying out this particular program. We want to make sure that the steps are tailor-made. So notwithstanding the point about pro forma audit programs, we still have to look at those and make sure that all the parts are relevant for whatever the area processor system is. So we need to reflect on programs, not just use them over and over again, but really make sure that what we're doing now is relevant for the objectives and the scope and the other and the location. Steps should have a reason. So it should be clear, and this is another way in which less experienced auditors can really help us. The way that we might write as managers and directors may not be as clear as it needs to be. So why are we doing this? The steps should have a reason, and that reason should be clear to our teammates. Positive instructions. I kind of alluded to this, but I'll reiterate. We want to make sure that it tells the auditor where to go, what to collect, and then how to analyze or otherwise handle that information when they get it. The flexibility and the relevancy is also important, and prioritizing in order. Like I said a moment ago, maybe there are certain things that are location specific. So if we're going, say we're traveling to a branch, let's do, or a country office, let's do the things that must be done in that place, and let's make sure that our program is arranged that way to make it easier. Let's not waste our time or waste our clients' energy with things that don't apply to them.
That's right.
Supervisory review, of course, and client input where applicable. By the time it gets to the audit program, it can be a little bit tricky to get client input. So we're hoping, and this has been the practice that I've seen, that client input is solicited very early on. So it may also be that the program you're looking at has the fingerprints of the client on it, that they have a particular interest in us looking at some area processor system within their purview. That would be especially true for consulting engagements.
Very good. Yes, absolutely. Great list of considerations to keep in mind. And as we go about doing our work and checking our work product, it'll help us very much to keep in mind what you said about thinking of it as a guide, think of it as a fence, and also making sure these attributes are present in our work programs. So thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Thanks, Hernan. It was my pleasure.
If you like this series, subscribe to the ACI Learning YouTube channel to enjoy more audit-related content.